Hi, welcome to Celebrating Culture. A great part of the Italian tradition in New Orleans are St. Joseph altars and our parade. In the Italian community and the Sicilian community, St. Joseph is a mainstay. He was a saint that we prayed to in Sicily hundreds of years ago during a drought. When the drought ended, we gave praise to him and built altars at homes, schools, and churches to give the food to the poor. And that tradition carries on in New Orleans today and throughout Louisiana. The pinnacle of St. Joseph Week is the pasta feed put on by the St. Joseph Marching Society, 500 pounds of pasta. The following day, the men put on tuxedos, they're in chariots, and they go through the French Quarter, handing out paper roses to the ladies. A great opportunity to really experience New Orleans Italian style. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here today at Metairie Cemetery, and I'm with Father Damian. Father, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
How long have you been in New Orleans?
I moved here in 2013.
You're not Italian descent yourself?
No, I'm not, no.
But you have embraced Italian culture.
The familial aspect of the Italian culture, I think it's really desirable now in the world because the breakdown of families, and there's a lot of loneliness in the world, so Italians never let you be lonely.
You came here, and one of the things you're very active with is St. Joseph's Day, the Beauregard Kai's altar. Tell me about that one.
So they wanted to start a St. Joseph altar and have it blessed. They set up this beautiful altar and came and blessed the altar, and then it's gradually gotten bigger.
You also went to Homa's house recently.
Yeah.
The energy for altars is still strong.
It is. We had the St. Joseph altar in New Jersey. It was nothing like what you have in New Orleans. And it's sad because where we had visited in Sicily, we were told that it was not celebrated so much anymore. But here in Louisiana, especially in New Orleans, it is, I think, one of the most beautiful traditions and most beautiful devotions to St. Joseph, the altars here.
Lisa and the Elanians did a great job with that altar. That was a beautiful altar there.
I think that was one of the most interesting altars that I blessed was at Homa's house. I had not known the story of the Italians who were working in the fields here, whether they were picking cotton, and also to all of the people who have died and who have lived in these places and who have suffered.
In the 1890s, many Sicilians, especially from Contessa Antolina, left New Orleans and ended up in Los Angeles. I went to the Italian-American Museum of Los Angeles and met with Executive Director Mariana Gatto. She did a great display of the Italian St. Joseph altar, which they call a St. Joseph table.
I'm eternally envious of the St. Joseph's altars in New Orleans. I think they're the loveliest in the nation. We opened this exhibition about St. Joseph's tables, which is what we call them here in Los Angeles. This exhibition examines the history of this tradition, dating back to its origins in Sicily and how Italian immigrants brought it to the United States and how we continue to carry it on today across the nation, including in New Orleans. Because the Feast of St. Joseph takes place during Lent, all the dishes placed on the table are meatless. The St. Joseph breads, I feel, are just the most fascinating parts of the altars. We were lucky enough to receive contributions from bakers all over the country. Di Camillo Bakery in New York provided many of these breads that you see here. You'll notice that they take many symbolic shapes, from the Bambino Gesù, or the baby Jesus, to a fish, Jesus being the fisher of men, and St. Joseph's sandals. The Holy Family in the early days were refugees. They fled their homeland. King Herod had ordered the killing of all male children under the age of 2 in what was known as the Massacre of the Innocents.
In the corner over there, you have a display on how St. Joseph is the patron saint of real estate agents.
Real estate agents and home buyers.
In fact, my mom once sent me a statue of St. Joseph to plant in my front yard to help me sell my home.
He's considered the catch-all saint. He's the patron saint of expectant mothers, of immigrants, of refugees, craftspeople, of carpenters. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Father, tell me about Irene's.
So Irene's is a restaurant run by a Sicilian family in the French Quarter. I always imagined it as the Vatican of restaurants because of all of the religious people coming in and out, and because it actually has shrines built in it.
That altar is just amazing.
I posted a picture of myself blessing the altar, and I was supposed to have dinner with some people the next day after that, and they were mad at me because they thought I was in Europe, the way it was set up and decorated in the St. Joseph room of her restaurant. So it was so opulent and it's so solemnly decorated that it looks like a chapel of an old castle or an old manor. I believe it's one of the most beautiful altars, if not the most beautiful altar I've seen in New Orleans. I think it's the heart that's put into it, the passion that's put into it, that the waiters and waitresses there put into it. it. The whole family adds to it there, and that you have food being cooked that has been passed down from generation to generation.
Also, the seminarians sing there.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
So I arranged that. We decided to go over the top, and I said, what do you think of this? And Irene said, that's a wonderful idea, a couple of years ago. And so they started coming every year. She makes a big table outside for them and feeds them all. It adds to the solemnity of it and the beauty of it.
She personally has a strong calling to keep the faith alive. What do you think that drives her so much?
You know, I always say, Irene, you're strong. She said, no, I'm passionate. So it's her passion for her faith, for what God's called her to do, for her family, and for her heritage. You know, I think the faith is the thing that drives her the most, though.
And that restaurant is beautiful.
I spend a lot of time there. My cassock got tighter as I spent more time there.
Also, Briccados, they do an altar as well.
You can't get rid of who you are or where you came from. I think the Briccados have always embraced that. A lot of the Italians here, they have such deep devotion, not only to their history and their culture, but also to the saints who have been, St. Joseph especially, who's interceded for them. I don't think they can imagine their lives or their businesses without St. Joseph. So Briccados, the wonderful dessert place there, also celebrates St. Joseph. All of the food that they have there, it's old world there too, even though it's not in the French Quarter anymore.
And for COVID, they actually moved their altar to the windows.
They moved it there so that people could venerate St. Joseph and still see this beautiful tradition.
Hi, my name is Arthur Briccato. I operate Angelo Bricato's Ice Cream and Confections in New Orleans with my family. We've been doing this for over 111 years. We make Italian pastries, biscotti, gelato, spumoni, cassata, cannoli. My family came from Cefalù in Sicily when the Great Migration in early 1900s, and we've been in New Orleans ever since. We're celebrating St. Joseph's Day, March 19th, with an altar that we've been doing since at least the last 60 or 70 years. When we were down in the French Quarter, my grandparents did a huge St. Joseph's altar with all the foods and breads and cakes and pastries. With the older people gone, it's a very difficult job to continue, but we need to continue our traditions. So we still do it on a much smaller scale with cakes and breads and pastries and cookies. We have certain things of Sicilian origin, the pupaculogos, which is biscotti with the egg. The egg is cooked in there. It's used in Sicily for Easter, and since St. Joseph's Day always falls on in the Easter season, this is always included on the St. Joseph's altar. Another item, St. Lucy was a patron in Sicily, but they always add the St. Lucy's eyes made out of fig, and that's always included on the St. Joseph's altar as well. St. Joseph's Day is always a very busy day. People come out, Italians as well as non-Italians, to visit St. Joseph's altars and to celebrate in the feast. It's a feast of the family.
The history of St. Joseph being passed on generation to generation just shows the intensity and passion to working hard and getting through tough times.
And I think it's a very big miracle, something with a lot of grace, that you could enter into a restaurant or into somebody's business and you could meet a saint and God face to face. And I think that's a reality that can never be wiped out of the hearts of the people here, especially the Italian community, because of the devotion of the Italians to their patron.
Well, Father, I want to thank you for being on the show. And thank you for all you've brought to New Orleans, the blessings. St. Joseph altars, I feel that there's a resurgence that is strong.
St. Joseph is a wonderful patron, and they can't deny that, and they don't, and they're spreading it, and it should grow again. We need St. Joseph.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture. Celebrating Culture is brought to you by Awe News. Awe News also produces New Orleans Insider Tours, which are 10 self-guided tours of New Orleans and Louisiana. To download the apps, all you have to do is point your phone at the flow code in the camera mode, and you're ready to really experience Louisiana. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're here today with Archbishop Amen. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure.
St. Joseph's Day. I mean, how many schools or churches actually do St. Joseph's Day now?
I don't know the numbers, but I can tell you this, that it's increasing more and more. It's a lot of parishes, but now it's a lot of the schools are doing something also. And a couple of years ago, I went to one of the grocery stores. They were doing a St. Joseph altar. So it really has become widespread. I don't know of any other diocese in the United States that celebrates it with so many different altars.
How many do you get to see on a day?
Probably about 6.
Do you start off that morning of St. Joseph's Day in Gretna?
I go there at noon, and that is one of the largest, if not the largest, in the Archdiocese.
Father Frank that started that, he told me he started it actually with like one banquet table.
Well, it's half of the gym now. Yeah, it's huge. There's a long line of people waiting to get in, and they literally work year-round in preparing for it.
We're here at St. Joseph's in Gretna, and I'm with Father Frank, who's been here for 40 years with St. Joseph's. Father, welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to be with you again.
So tell me, before you started the altar here, you were in Sicily.
I was ordained a priest in Sicily. My parents came from there, but I was born in Pennsylvania.
How did you get the idea to do an altar?
They used to have an altar, but it fell apart. I mean, the people left. So I said, well, I heard all about it, and other people were having it, so I said, next year I hope to have one. And ever since, as I say, the rest is history.
I'm thinking it's over 1,000 people that will get fed.
Well, more than that, sometimes 2,000 to 3,000. They start feeding right after the little children. The whole family are fed, and then from then they go to about 6:30 at night.
The feeding of the children, what is that to symbolize?
It goes back to the tradition of the Christmas that there was no room in the inn for Mary to give birth to Jesus. So they reenact the Christmas scene. Is there any room for you? Joseph knock on the door and they say there's no room. The Trinity, all three is perfect. So the third time you ask, is there any room? Then you say yes, and then the little family can come in and you feed the children.
Now I understand the fava bean.
That's also the origin of the celebration too, because Sicily, back centuries ago, people were starving. The fava bean is what kept them alive. And then also tradition, keeping your lucky bean, carry it with you, you know. The big thing is also the cookies. In the Sicilian, they call them cuccidati. They're like fig Newtons, but they're made with the ground figs with citrus in it and some nuts, and then they roll it out and they bake them and decorate them with different sprinkles on the color. You need a grace of special favor from God. They would say, grant me this grace and I will have an altar in my house. And so what they would do, they would put in their home and they invite all their friends and they would put up the statue with all the candles and cook all the food. It was like a votive offering.
Father, I want to thank you for being on the show and for what you've done to Gretna and for St. Joseph's. It's amazing to see where we are today, and I look forward to the 40th.
The tradition is that you prepare the altar and people come and eat for free. But the real purpose is that we will share the food with the poorest of the poor.
In Metairie, at St. Francis Xavier, you were there this year as well.
I was.
It was a gentleman that started that.
Jack and Gail Siciliano.
I remember Jack told me the statue he has. His mother told him, if you have a statue, you have to have an altar that measures up to the statue.
I hadn't heard that one.
We're here today at St. Francis Xavier School. I'm with Father Palermo. Father, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
What a beautiful altar you have today.
Everybody tells me it's one of the best, and I certainly agree. It is aesthetically beautiful and full of a lot of love and a lot of effort by many people.
And you also feed today.
We fed over 1,500 people today.
So what is the history with feeding?
Well, it goes back to the history of the altar itself, coming from Sicily. There was a drought in Sicily. The people of Sicily prayed to St. Joseph for rain. The rains came, the crops grew, they were saved from starvation. And in an act of thanksgiving and to fulfill a promise, they erected altars, or actually tables, in the towns and squares and villages of Sicily, and they invited the poor to come and to feast. When the Sicilian immigrants came over to the United States, they brought that custom with them. And so part of it is making food available for the poor, the needy, and just really for anybody who wants to come. Anybody can come to the table.
You can see a lot of community today. A lot of people show up and actually volunteer, bring something to the altar.
We certainly have had a few hundred people who have worked on the altar in some capacity. I can tell you that for 7 weekends, we had 50 to 60 people making cookies. They made 35,000 cookies. And in addition to that, we had many people helping to set up altars, many people helping with cooking, all of the food that remains from the St. Joseph altar. We're going to have trucks and vans going in various different directions to homeless shelters and to other charity outreaches that the church has. So we'll be able to provide again for needy people.
Are the tourists that are coming here that are visiting New Orleans for other reasons?
Well, I have met people from several other places around Louisiana, as well as from out of state. There was a man who told me today that he flies in every year from Virginia and schedule some of his vacation time here so that he can participate in the St. Joseph altar, because they don't have this at the Catholic Church where he worships or any place in his area. So yes, we're promoting the tourist economy locally. So.
And there's another part of the altar where I see in memory of on the altar.
There's a custom of having a picture of a deceased loved one. Sometimes it's somebody who has died recently, and so whatever is contributed to the altar is contributed in honor and in memory of that person and in continuing prayers for that person. Other times, some of the pictures, you can tell that they're quite dated and that the people in them probably died many years ago, but the family still remembers them.
Father, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's always amazing to me when I go to the altars, because I'll meet people from 10 different parishes, and they have their own favorite altar that they want to go to, whether it's large or small. St. Joseph is the patron of the Universal Church, so it's appropriate that we honor him.
Archbishop Edmund, I want to thank you for being on the show. And stay tuned, we'll be right back with more of Celebrating Culture. Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. In this episode, we're going to go to the homes of people who celebrate St. Joseph, in particular in Little Palermo in New Orleans. We're at the home of Tony Moreno, who does a great St. Joseph altar every year. He's been doing it for
since about 1986.
1986.
Welcome to the house.
So fill us in, how did you get started with having an altar?
When I was a child in the early 50s, I had a great aunt, Aunt Josie. They would set up an altar in her bar. It was in the Irish Channel near St. Alphonsus Church. A lot of my family lived in that area, and they would do a St. Joseph altar. And it was a tradition that continued on to about the late 60s, early 70s. And then it sort of fell out of the family. No one was doing it anymore. And then when I went to law school and I graduated in '85, I decided to do a small altar at my house in another house in the French Quarter. And then we started doing it again here on Bourbon Street, and it started growing and growing. In 2010, we had a major fire on February 16th. So that was a month before St. Joseph of March the 19th. People said, well, are you gonna do it? And I said, yeah, and we're gonna go outside and do it on the street. In the backdrop of a house that had been burned, we set up the first St. Joseph altar.
Now outside though, you had opera.
We have a Bon Appetit. They're a group that sings in various locations throughout the year. They're committed now every March 19th, they're coming.
This block, are they like real excited now that St. Joe's Day comes?
Absolutely. They basically look forward every year. So in addition to what we do on the street, we do also set up an altar in the house as well.
When you walk into your home, you have it done as well as a church does with the detail. I mean, you really make sure you have the beans and the lemons and everything.
As the story goes, if you steal the lemon, surreptitiously though, you have to be sneaky about it. You can't let anybody see it, but if you steal the lemon, you can be lucky in love. And so everyone hears that story, they want to take a lemon. A couple I just met the other day at the Piazza d'Italia who told me that I'm responsible for them getting married, because they came to my altar and she stole the lemon off the altar, and now she's married to a wonderful man for the last 4 years.
Now I understand you were the centerfold of a book?
Yes, we've got a book. This one was done in 2003.
That's you.
That's my home and the altar on Bourbon Street, and we're in the centerfold of the book.
What a great book.
Yes, altars around the city and other homes.
So Tony, around the corner from you is the Beauregard Kai's house, and I understand they do St. Joseph altars as well. We're here today at the Beauregard Kai's house with Lily Elkins. Lily, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it.
So Lily, you guys had a fantastic St. Joseph's altar that was even blessed.
This year was our 4th annual St. Joseph altar. We started doing it in 2015, not long after one of the Giaccona family descendants started volunteering here at the house. And she really got us all excited about the Sicilian heritage of the house that was known about but hadn't been fully researched. And it's just a lovely tradition to be involved in every year, to really celebrate the Sicilian culture, also honor this important Catholic tradition. We are right across the street from the St. Mary's Church.
You're the heart of Little Palermo. As we go back in time and use that phrase, 1890 to 1915, this was called Little Palermo.
We just love having the altar here. It brings in all kinds of people, many Sicilian descendants themselves, but also people who wouldn't have known about the tradition, people who just come to see the Beauregard Kai's house. So they come and it's part of the tour, but it's also open just to people who want to come and pay their respects and, get their fava bean. They might leave a donation. We always give our donations to Covenant House or a similar organization. And then they have the option to leave a message or a prayer to St. Joseph. Afterward, we do the traditional burning of them after the altar has been taken down.
Now, traditionally, the Sicilians had prayed to St. Joseph, so they're writing the same type of prayer in a way.
And they are very private. We never read any of them or anything like that. It's between them and St. Joseph.
And the blessing.
He did a very traditional blessing. He had the holy water, he had the incense, and I think everyone felt moved by it. definitely,
And,
including
and
myself.
what was on the altar?
We get as many different people to contribute within, the neighborhood as possible. So these traditional and specifically important items, we make sure that someone will get. We always have lots of lemons. We always arrange like half a day just setting it up together.
You are the heart of as we say, Piccolo Palermo.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you guys bringing it back is such a great statement to let people know that this part of the town, what it was.
Yes, absolutely.
It's neat to see the resurgence of the Sicilian community coming together for these days.
I started doing it in late 80s, and very few people were doing it then. And then suddenly churches starting to do it, and restaurants, more and more homes are doing it again too. It's become a tradition that it started in the homes, and we would normally stack up furniture and put, you'd have the Holy Trinity, you need 3 tiers. And you'd take an armoire and a chest of drawers and a table and stack it in such a way that you'd have the Holy Trinity.
Tony, I want to thank you for a great St. Joseph altar and all you're doing for the Italian heritage of New Orleans.
You're quite welcome, and thanks for visiting my altar at my home.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back with more Celebrating Culture. Hi, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Celebrating Culture. On News has interviewed hundreds of people and produced dozens of episodes for local broadcasting of awesome people doing great things to inspire us all. If you'd like to watch a specific interview, please visit our YouTube channel and subscribe. Hi, welcome to Celebrating Culture. I'm here at Andre's restaurant with Peter Gilmore. Peter, welcome to the show.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you for having
it's
me.
awesome to meet you. My dad marched in the parade years ago. I go to the pasta feed. You guys have grown a lot in the last few decades, and you bring the culture, you keep it alive in the French Quarter.
We have. We celebrated our 48th annual St. Joseph's Day festivities this March. Of course, we kick it off with the pasta con lansardi.
500 pounds.
500 pounds of pasta con lansardi is cooked every year. One of our guest chefs comes down from the Bronx, David Greco. We had dinner here at Andrea's the night before. I said, you need me to come help? I got a little culinary experience, 4:30 in the morning. And he said, no, you talk too much. Go on TV and promote the parade and the festivities. So that's what I did.
You got Rocky there. It's a really festive event.
Right.
And it's free pasta because it's part of the tradition.
It is part of the tradition. We do the pasta con lansardi, or like they do here, the pasta milanese.
Who does the calling?
One of our founders, Judge Anthony Russo, Tony Russo, he's a retired magistrate.
Bring forth the pasta! More pasta! More pasta! More pasta!
And they bring it on these bread sheets, the culinary staff and the wait staff at the Hilton Riverside Hotel, and they come out in unison and we dump it into this big 8-foot bowl. We feed the masses. We feed the people of the city. It's free to the public.
So why do you do that?
It's just one of the kickoff of our celebration. Of course, we pay homage to San Giuseppe because of the famine that occurred in Sicily many, many years ago. And the people there were starving. They prayed to St. Joseph for the rains, and the rains came. And this is just one of the many dishes that's used with the Feast of St. Joseph, the altars that are prepared.
So there are right now restaurants throughout New Orleans that do this, and schools. The church in Gretna has 1,600 people they feed on St. Joseph's Day.
We took the St. Joseph altar from homes and from churches, and we brought it to the street in a festive fashion, in the parade fashion. But we're not a Mardi Gras organization, and no disrespect to the lineage and history of Mardi Gras, but we're doing, as we say, our own thing. This parade, put on by the Italian American St. Joseph Society, formerly the Italian American Marching Club, began following the Irish Channel Parade as just a minute representation. The organization began in front of the St. Mary's Italian Church. They would begin there and go out onto Esplanade and parade around the French Quarter on the backside of the quarter, as it was referred to, where most of the Sicilians lived in that area. And the lovely young ladies who range in age from 5 until their early 20s, they parade as maids, and we have court maids. We have a queen that's selected among all those girls, 85 girls each year, and they're representing their Italian-American heritage. So, it's easy for them to be up there in their beautiful gowns and look pretty, and, we try to pass ourselves off as somewhat suave and debonair, which is easy for Italians.
Just be yourself.
Just be yourself.
And I also see that there's normally at least 3 generations of Italians. You'll have the grandfather, the son, and the grandson.
We have the legions. We have the red, white, and green legions. You're correct. We do have many generations, maybe in some instances 4 generations.
We're here today with John Viola. John, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Now you're here because you're the Grand Marshal of the parade.
Yeah, this week, after many years of coming down and supporting the St. Joseph's Day Parade, I am the Grand Marshal for one of my favorite weekends of the year. So it's a really great honor and a good excuse to be back in one of my favorite cities.
There's nothing like St. Joseph's Day in New Orleans. Authentic culture right here. Everything from the saint to the marchers to the music in this great Sicilian city. We love it. We love being here.
Although many Sicilians live outside of the French Quarter now,
Right.
it was Little Palermo in the day.
Little Palermo in the day, you know, my research and what I've read, you know, at one time it was probably all in jest that they were thinking about maybe we should change the name to the Italian Quarter as opposed to the French Quarter. But, you know, like other people can tell you, it's mostly Sicilians. My heritage is Italian on my father's side and Sicilian on my mother's side. So that war still goes on.
And locally, Lena Prima recently.
Lena moved back home from Las Vegas. We approached her. She was more than glad to assist us in the endeavors that we needed her to perform. She's been like a sister.
I'm a marshal right here in the parade. I'm Lena Prima. My father's the great Louis Prima. Every year we have this wonderful parade and celebrate our great Italian heritage here in New Orleans, because we stay true to the traditions that have been passed down for generations, and it's the thing we look forward to all year long.
Has our own chef been part of you guys?
Chef Andrea served as our Caesar. I don't recall what year it was in. He could probably tell you the exact year, because I know when you have the kind of fun that we have, it's memorable for the rest of your life.
You've now a nonprofit. Tell us how somebody reaches out to you guys.
We are a full-fledged nonprofit. You can reach us through our website, ItalianAmericanSociety.org, or the acronym is IASJS.org. You alluded to the fact about your father building altars in Monroe, Louisiana. We are, as part of our plan and mission, we'll be hosting classes of how to properly construct a St. Joseph altar.
This is a great tradition. It's great to see that it's so well known in New Orleans that it can be carried on and taught to different families.
We continue to bring the young in, and as long as they continue to come to us, we teach them the importance of keeping these traditions alive, not just for the city of New Orleans, but for the entire country.
Peter, I want to thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
It's always fun, the parade, and you put on such a great parade, and then the post-party, just the whole event is just an amazing thing.
Anytime. Thank you.
Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. What a great episode, and I hope you're enthused about enjoying St. Joseph's Day next year. Come on out to an Italian event, get a fave bean, and have a lucky year.